Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to my showcase of my RPG horror, Fallen. On the previous episode, we went over the prologue of the game, and, well, if you guys were pretty excited and enjoyed what you saw on the last part during that section, then I think you're gonna really like what we have to show you here. Alright, cool, great, I have split personalities now. Anyway, you're really gonna like what's gonna be in this chapter, I almost assuredly think so if you enjoyed the last part, because this is where we actually start to dive into the horror part of RPG horror. So without further ado, I'm not gonna waste your time any further, let's dive straight into the following scene immediately after the loading screen for the prologue. I should probably tell Leo where I'm off. I'll wait on that. The last thing he needs is to worry about me. He's got his own life to worry about, and all he ever seemed to do is get in the way of that. Well, time to get some answers. This place is falling apart. Holy shit. This doesn't even look like a place someone would be able to live. Figures. So there's really not much to say about this area. It's not going to be the first time that we're outside and it'll pop up again later. The only thing really to say here is I wish I removed that fucking tutorial that we'll bump into in a minute about interacting with things, but I didn't, so it's going to pop up anyway. What can I say? It's a 4 to 5 year old project, like I said several times. So that little event a minute ago where the floor gave way is actually conversation worthy because it takes a little thinking outside of the box to be able to do what I just did right there. This isn't just something where you can put an event block that the character can easily pass over that just pops a hole up on the floor right there, because that's actually a painted tile, which means that it changes depending on what blocks are adjacent to it in the map-making process. Ordinarily, you could just have like a block disappear or whatever the case appear suddenly by scripting something when you step on a certain tile. You cannot do that in this case. This took 2 different maps where there's a hole in the floor behind him and where there is not, and that was a seamless transition from one map all the way to another one without any fade in or fade out. So just a little bit of a tactic for you guys to use later on down the line if you're fucking with painted tiles. You can just use 2 different maps and do that, and it works seamlessly. But either way, moving on, we're actually finally inside of the house. We have locked the character from being able to leave the house, even though it doesn't really make logical sense. He even makes fun of that in this dialogue line right here, but either way, we are now officially in the main part of the game within this really fucked up looking house. One of the main points that I want to drive home here is I really was trying to aim towards avoiding the key hunt thing that happens in a lot of like indie horror games, especially RPG Maker games, at all costs. So I really didn't want to make it so that you're just running from one key to the next room and then the next key to the other room after solving a puzzle or whatever the case is, and tried to make it a little open-ended, so a lot of these doors are going to be locked off. But that's because my plan in my head was to be able to obtain a key later on down the line that unlocks the entire lower level of the house. So that's something later on when you go and pass through here, and then some of these rooms you'll be able to go in and out of through, I don't know, like a hole in the wall or some case like that to pass from one room to the next. There's going to be a little bit more of a unique, or rather, I suppose, intricate, for lack of a better word, way to go in and out of these rooms, rather than just you're finding the next key in sequence, because that's just fucking boring. So, either way, I'm going to let this go ahead and play so that you guys can kind of just get into the mood of the way that it feels like going through this house, let the music play, etc., read all of the descriptions for when I am interacting with objects from the very beginning of the house, all the way until I have something to say now. So, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. After all, immersion is important here, if nothing else. This event, as you'll see in the menu in a second here, doesn't actually give you the protective charm as it's supposed to, because it's actually a pretty heavily evented item. It's supposed to give you one get-out-of-jail-free card in the event of death, and you will see exactly what I mean in a short while. This jump as well is something that you're not necessarily supposed to do yet, because there is a door that you can explore if you go down that right wing. But this is something that you can do to completely sequence break, which I wanted to showcase. Ooh, 9mm bullets. Wonder what those are for. This is where you're supposed to go to be able to access the upper floors, or the upper area of the house, but I just wanted to, again, showcase the right wing first, because you can explore a little bit before you go down there, but I just wanted to show you that you can go down there now if you wanted to. Yeah, blood into the doorways is always a good foreboding sign, right? I really went ham with my blood tiles, you'll see later. So all in all, I really like this room. I do. I wouldn't really change much about it. However, there are two items from within this room, the old journal page and the silver key, that will give access to some of that cringy dialogue I've mentioned a couple of times. So we'll get to there when we get there. So I misclick here, but we're going to go over the old journal page in a moment. Because no RPG horror is complete without reading random dialogue to scare you. So like I said, this shit's generic and cringe. I can't read it in a voice, I'm sorry. I can't take my fucking self seriously doing this. How am I supposed to convince you? This image was made pretty easily through GIMP or Photoshop or whatever that you would like to do. You just put text over a PNG file of a piece of paper. That's what I did with most of this shit, and then you just display it on screen. I just want to make a note that in Fallen, item descriptions are important, so check your inventory whenever you get a new item just to see what Kai has to say about it. And of course, this creepy-ass bloody room wouldn't be complete without a slight jump scare of shit just popping up behind you. Nothing too significant yet, though. There's also a double whammy with the plate that falls off of the hutch out in the main area with the save point as well, if you heard that one earlier. There's no interactable dialogue, but there should be. I think I just fucked up the event. So that's another bit of dialogue that I refuse to read out loud. Alright, so first problem with that one, if you guys were not paying attention right there, the biggest problem with that exchange is if it's somebody that you were in a dedicated relationship with, and it wasn't that long ago that they had passed very clearly, then how the fuck wouldn't he even realize that that's the person that he's looking at right there? Because she very clearly, based off of, you will see later on into this playthrough, She looks exactly the same. Like, there's not much of a difference there. They look exactly the same, ghost form Alice and regular Alice. But not only just that, just a lot of the very small dialogue in there just needs to be tweaked a little bit, because I think just the whole, it sounds like a cheesy action movie line, that needs to get ousted, because that just hurts reading that one right there. I almost didn't even want to fucking, like, showcase that in general, but I do this for you guys. Now, the entire point of this exchange, anyway, with this dialogue is I wanted to have certain choices in the game dictate the way the ending is, based off of whether or not that you go out of your way to speak to Alice, because there are several different exchanges of dialogue that you can have with her, and later on you're going to have a way to be able to just kind of call her from either a save point or some other areas in the game. That was at least my ideology of it, and then it can just slightly tweak the way the game is. I'm not sure how, but it was just an idea that I had in my head that I was freeballing with. So that's what this whole entire area is for. It's out of the way, and you don't even need to necessarily go there, but it is still there for you to interact with her. There's also some medicine in the cabinet up in the northern area here, so, free healable items as well. Alright, welcome to the upper house, ladies and gentlemen. So I investigate the fireplace here to open up, just to show you guys that there's nothing that we can do there right now. This will become apparent in a little while. Now, the upper house I'm very excited about, because this is the real turning point of the game. This is where all of its mechanics are fully realized, or at least for the most part. I hope you all remember the fact that Kai has several sporting magazines with guns and all that other stuff at his house, as well as a shotgun in the chest and the 9mm bullets earlier. And there we have it, the first gun in the game. Yes, there is a combat system in this RPG horror, but it is incredibly sloppy and needs to be fleshed out to be actually in real time, rather than turn-based, which we'll see in a little while, because it adds a shitload of actions that you can do, known as, I believe, gun actions, which is just really shoddy and crappy. Like that check clip option, for example, that tells you how many rounds are in your magazine. It actually wastes a turn and then you take unnecessary damage, which is stupid. The whole entire concept of it is just dumb, so I wanted to go ahead and just completely revamp this later on, but I haven't done it yet, and it's right now just a turn-based, which we will see momentarily. I hope I skipped the tutorial. Alright, good. The tutorial is crap. It really is, so... He holds a very confident, posturing with that gun right there, because he now has a weapon to defend himself with, so he's not too worried. But anyway, this is the gist of it, really, right here, is just shooting, and combat is not necessarily meant to be a difficult thing for you, especially if you go on the lower difficulties. The point of combat is, I wanted to take more of a Resident Evil style approach to things, in that the goal is to minimize the amount of resources that you use, whether or not that you should just run by something, or if you should outright shoot it and then waste your ammunition in the process. So, there's supposed to be a push and pull dynamic here, but there's a big problem with it. And it also is meant to, so that you can exhaust a clip system. That is a working clip system across both guns in the game, too. So if you remember, the floor collapsed behind us, and this you cannot go through at the current moment, so we have to find another way around if we were to ever backtrack to that area. So, and also that transition doesn't work on that tile for whatever reason. We're about to go over the problem that it comes to with shooting or not shooting. So if you notice, these guys are very easy to walk by, and if you remember the running mechanic that I had mentioned before, you can still run and make that even easier on you. But first it is cutscene time. So what now? I'll take that as a sign of good luck for now. I should probably get out of here. I usually make it a habit to avoid graves. And then there's also medicine in the bottom right corner here if you go ahead and investigate, as is the mantra of this game. So in a moment I go over how easy it is to sneak by these guys, because I made them slower than the player, but the frequency in which they move, it's consistent. They don't move like a block, stop, pause, and then move another block. And then that also is the description for the key. So it's talking about double doors, which is very clearly right here. And then this is an important room, actually. Obviously, being a reference there to the fact that he enjoys reading. So, note for later on as well, there actually is a second medium scrap in the top left corner that I completely skip over that I'll have to grab in a little while. But this area, all of the bookcases are alphabetically organized, which I believe you guys have an idea of what's going to happen here, so. And then with this zombie, if you see right here, if you just move right at the beginning of them moving into the tile address right to the bottom right or the top left of the character, then you can very easily just go right by any one of these corpse enemies and have no issue whatsoever. So, since they're so easy to fucking avoid once you understand that mechanic, and you can literally avoid them with 100% efficiency, then had to stop for a minute right there because that candle goes out. Since you can avoid them with 100% efficiency, there's no reason to shoot them, so the whole entire dynamic of kill or avoid is irrelevant, really. Obviously, there's things to investigate over here. And then this door is locked by a weird mechanism. Doesn't make sense how he would know that it's not a normal lock, but I mean, it's whatever. This is important for later on down the line, by the way. Keep that in mind for when we go into the final part where I talk about the entire point of the game, so remember that note. Because there's a bit of foreshadow on that one. Wink, wink. And then this is the only important document in here. Obviously, Phoenix being the key word. So if you guys remembered the alphabetical bookcases, then there you go. It's not exactly a difficult puzzle, but it serves as a trigger for you to be able to go in there. If I were to talk to the bookcase labeled P, it wouldn't do anything until I touch that note. So you have to unlock that with a switch first. So a little bit more annoying with the dialogue here. So this is kind of generic and crappy, and also the lighting from the Kaz mechanic, it just makes it really hard to read right there. But I'll let you guys read through this one in the spare time if you want to pause. But the real important thing is just the bottom. From the ashes of what once was lies the only path towards renewal. So that's supposed to vaguely tell you the fireplace? Puzzles are not really, like, the easiest thing to do, especially in RPG Maker games with mechanics, but the whole point of that is supposed to get you to backtrack there to go through the fireplace. I'm going to revamp this puzzle later on down the line, but that is the line of thinking that I had with this. I wish I could say that this was a reference to Resident Evil 7. I do not remember when the demo to that game released, but I really wish I could say that was a reference to Resident Evil 7. but it wasn't initially. It could be now, to be honest with you. That would be a very hilarious way to incorporate that. Also, this area is terrible with the way that corpse is placed, because he just always is in the way. It's very difficult to get around him. Not impossible, but difficult. Alright, and now we are towards the back end of the house. I tried to get in there to investigate the doorway, but there's nothing that you can do there. Also, that one fucks up in that it doesn't stop enemies from moving when you investigate that doorway. That's just some crappy eventing on my part. This is meant to be like a little, I guess a foyer. I don't know what you would call it, but just that area between walking outside of a house and then the actual house itself. Just that little mid-area. Obviously, you can't go through there, but he insinuates the fact that you can break it down, so... It is time to look for quite the item that you need to do so with. Classic sarcasm. So this room actually is particularly unique versus all of the other ones, other than what he had just said right there. There's a couple of interesting pieces of dialogue as well. If you were to investigate the clock, and I don't remember if I do so, but I do believe he does, the clock says the same exact thing as in the initial room, where it is completely stopped. More importantly, this dresser has clothes from several time periods, which is supposed to insinuate something and foreshadow for later on down the line. But there are clothes from, like, the 1700s and shit that are in there, is what I mean. Like, it goes as far back as that. So, just a little bit of food for thought for you guys if you wanted to go ahead and brainstorm ideas. But again, I will go over that in the latter part. Also, of course, the light breaks, because why the fuck not? You gotta keep doing those jump scares, man, where just random things happen. You gotta keep doing that and throwing it at people. Of course, the rusty pipe is used for busting down the door, and it actually doesn't disappear from your inventory after you do this. And now we have officially stepped outside. This leads to another mechanic of the game as well. But before that, we're going to go inside of this shed right here. Because the shed actually is kind of important towards the next chapter of the game. This is my favorite soundtrack in the entire fucking game right here. I believe it is the Tea Leaf Melancholy. So, more handgun rounds, because that's good. And if you notice, there's a lift of some sort over there. That was a bitch to be able to actually do the tiling for, and it involves quite a few events. I'll put the picture on screen right now, but dear God. Pull the lever, obviously, is a reference to The Emperor's New Groove, by the way. So, kudos for anybody who noticed that. So that being said, we have another one of these choices coming up here to move into the next area. It means absolutely nothing, but the choice is still there to make it all dramatic and shit. Either way, you still need to go deeper into the forest, so you're going to need to go in here to be able to obtain your lantern, which there's a bit of a stretch of logic here, but the character makes fun of it. And there you have it, the lantern. So, as he had mentioned right there, this is an interesting thing with the Kaz lighting effects as well. The lantern is a unique light that will actually follow the player around, so it could be stronger, but I think it's because this area is so dark, it's not the biggest AoE, so it is what it is. Also, the MP bar will diminish over time whenever that you use the lantern, so it's actually just a usable item in your inventory that puts the effect on you, and then it'll deplete your MP until it hits 0. And there are also items that you can use, consumables, that'll restore the battery power of the lantern, so this whole entire area is just meant to be that. If you were to bump into any of these corpses here, by the way, it'll initiate a combat with, just like before, it'll be a random encounter is the word that I was looking for. I kind of hate the way that I had done this, but if you investigate this item right here, it actually just stop him from moving, so you gotta kind of quickly go through that and then go up, otherwise it'll just force you into a fight because he'll be on the way back. But, you know, batteries. I think I'm going to change it so that you get either 2 or 3 batteries out of that, because currently in the game there aren't really any drops for batteries besides that, so you're kind of stuck on just relying on the auto regen for the battery health, which is fucking stupid. Now, Kai makes a note right here that you don't want to bump into this guy, which this is an instant kill if you were to bump into this corpse versus the other ones. So, we're gonna go ahead and fucking showcase it anyway, regardless in a minute, but there you go, just a little generic dialogue here. I think I did a pretty decent job, honestly, with the game over screens in here, but, I don't know, you guys can be the judge of that one. I kind of like the way that they went through. It's not anything particularly different from most RPG horrors, so, yeah. So when you finally complete the forest, you will get the music box key. Now, if you paid attention to the room that you investigate that gave you the old rusty pipe, there's actually a music box in there, which when you use that key later on down the line, you will be able to move the dresser, because there are scratch marks underneath it, which is supposed to insinuate that it was moved, and that's what that whole entire thing is supposed to do. You play the music box, and the dresser moves. Also, completely ignore that game progress equals 20 thing in the dialogue earlier. That was for me to know where a certain variable is, so that's not supposed to be in there for the full game. And then, of course, more shit falls over, so the tea set fell over right here. But wait, of course you can't make it to the music box room. I fell a long way down. Oh, fucking A, I can't read that. I can't read this fast. I don't know why I didn't fucking go slower there. I guess you'll have to go ahead and pause and read through those if you care enough about the dialogue, but I'd say this dialogue was pretty decently written out. It was just some decent narration dialogue right there, but that's the end of Chapter 2. I fucked up on the scrap earlier, but I'll go ahead and show you guys in a moment here. But I might as well complete all of this fucking shit because I want to see the game lore, but apparently I didn't click through it for a while, for whatever reason. Alright, there we go. This estate has been around for a long, long time. Kai is by no means the first to explore it. So, there we go. I gotta go back on my time reel here for a minute. And yes, it was always this creepy, was the last one. Alright. But like I said, we're gonna go ahead and just show you what that other medium scrap is, which is right here. And I'm not gonna read it out. I really don't care enough to read it out. You guys can pause it and read it if you will, but it is on screen right there. And yeah, so that's going to go ahead and wrap up this part. I have been on this one long enough. I got to go through the editing part and be able to clip and move my little avatar all over the place and all that other stuff. I finally fucking got through with all of the narration stuff. We have one more part, which is going to be quite a bit quicker and easier to get through than the other 2 parts, because this next chapter is not complete yet. So we're almost done, and then we can actually talk about the actual plot, the inspiration of the game, and all that other stuff, and we can do some behind the scenes, if you guys will. So yeah, let me know how you guys what you guys think about this actual RPG horror part. I would love to show you in the 4th part of it what I would like the combat to be, because I can definitely show you that in another project of mine, which might even be the next one that I showcase, but that'll be that. So I'll show you guys everything that I would like to show you with this, I assure you. Take it easy, and I will see you later on.